So I will be discussing some best practices for English and writing classes, along with some advice to go along with these. So the first one I'll be discussing is dictionaries. So there are several different types of dictionaries that students can use in the classroom. Picture dictionaries are more geared towards students who are at a lower or intermediate level of English proficiency. So an example of a student using a picture dictionary would be, let's say, they're trying to spell the word airplane. And all that they know is what an airplane looks like. They have no idea how to spell it. So what they're doing is they're flipping through this book to try and find that picture. And underneath it is the English word and definition. So they're able to make the connection between the two things, the picture and the definition. For bilingual dictionaries, these are more for students who are proficient in their home language, so they know the definition and the spelling of these words. They're just not in English. So then these dictionaries are used as a support to make the connection between the spelling and definition in their home language versus the spelling and definition in the English language. So they can make that connection there and relate the two. Monolingual dictionaries, so this is just a regular English dictionary. These are more for students who are at higher levels of English proficiency. So these students don't necessarily need the support. They get like the general definition of the words. They mostly know how to spell it. They just use it kind of as a backup support for if they're trying to find the concrete definition of the word, and to just check their spelling if they're unsure. Something that I would suggest is to have students can have a dictionary that they go out and buy and that they use, but I would suggest encouraging students to make their own dictionaries, because I think that it makes that connection stronger. If they're physically writing these words out and drawing these pictures, it's going to be easier for them to remember. And another thing is that a lot of the times, they have a variety of these different types of dictionaries available on iPads and tablets, so students can download these and have them digitally if they'd rather have it that way instead of in their book. So next, I'm going to be talking about this strategy called Ask 3, Then Me. So this is kind of used as a class-wide rule. So students know that before they can go and ask their teacher a question on the spelling or the definition of a word, they need to go to at least 3 different classmates before going to their teacher. They only go to their teacher if they don't receive the definition or the spelling from a classmate. And so what this does is it encourages students to use their peers as a resource. It helps develop courage, confidence, and social skills, and it also frees up teacher time, so students aren't constantly up at your desk asking you questions about how to spell a word when the person sitting next to them knows how to spell this word. Something I would say to be careful of is that students might rely too much on their peers and not rely on you as much. You want to make sure that they're receiving the correct information and that they're receiving it from you. So, mini lessons. Mini lessons are an important scaffolding and instructional support for ELL writers, and they are a critical component for writers' workshops. In these writers' workshops, teachers are able to become aware of the problem areas that their students are struggling in. So let's say that there are like 4 to 5 students who are struggling with the rules of capitalization. So whilst the class as a whole is working on an activity, you can pull those 4 to 5 students aside and go over those rules with them again. But what's important is that after you've reviewed those rules is to make sure that you're then monitoring them to make sure that they're picking it up and that they're not remaining at the same level, because you want to make sure that they're catching on to these skills. Another area that you can use these mini lessons is for teaching new concepts. So if there are students that are mastering the concepts that you're working on and they're ready to move ahead, but the rest of the class is still working on becoming proficient in those areas, you can pull those students aside and you can teach them things that the class hasn't learned yet. So maybe the next thing they need to learn is how to use a semicolon. So you can then teach them the difference between using a colon and a semicolon in sentences while other students are still working on commas and other punctuations.